Welcome to our Portuguese Table podcast. I'm Maria Lawton, the Azorean Green Bean.
And I'm Angela Simoes, and we're just two chicks dishing about Portuguese food, culture, and what it means to be Portuguese.
So grab a glass of vinho or un copo de café and join us as we talk about our favorite foods, reminisce about growing up Portuguese,
and interview some of our community's most successful chefs and food writers.
So sit down at our Portuguese table.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Our Portuguese Table. My name is Angela, and Maria, how are you today?
Hola, querida. I am fine. I'm doing well.
Good.
It's fall. It feels like fall.
It does.
And I'm enjoying it here in the East Coast because it's nice, crisp mornings. So today's been a good day. Today's been
that's good.
So far, so good.
So far, so good.
And how is it up there?
It's the sun is out, but it's there's a crispness in the air as well.
There is.
So I love it. I happen to love fall and winter weather.
Mm-hmm.
It's just my preference, though. I like the summer too, but I just love the turtlenecks and the sweaters, and
you can't beat the sweaters.
Being cozy on the sofa with the blanket and all
Definitely.
that. So the only thing I don't like is that it gets dark at 5:00. So, but
yeah, that's a whole other story.
Yeah,
that's a whole other story.
Today we have a unique guest, so it's a topic we've really never ever talked about before, which is genealogy, and and we've both touched on it, and it's becoming more and more popular in the community. People wanting to discover their roots and where they're from and things like that. So let's bring in our guest, Doug de Rocha Holmes. Hi, Doug.
Hi.
How are you?
Hi, I'm doing great.
Well, welcome to our table.
Thank you.
So I introduced you as, with your name, obviously, but do you go by a title? Do you go by like genealogy extraordinaire, genealogist extraordinaire?
King of the universe. How about that?
There we go. That works. Sure. Why not? When you, what does your business card say? Do you have a business card? What does it say?
Actually, no, I just rely on internet for that word of mouth advertising.
Okay. I
have my website, so people find me through that.
Yeah. Cause I would say you're one of the, I don't want to say premier experts, but when people think of genealogy experts or resources or people to talk to, especially about the Azores and especially about Terceira, your name comes up. So you're the go-to guy.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
At least from my perspective. I don't know. Maybe there's someone else out there I haven't heard of. But,
there's nobody else.
There is nobody else, Angela. It's just God.
You better not find out about them anyway.
I know.
Well, the thing about this is, like you said before when we introduced Doug, is we're in that age right now where everyone is having DNA tests.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody wants to know, you're Portuguese, but or you're Italian or you're whatever. But I want to know more. I want to know exactly where my family, my DNA comes from. And I think there's a huge amount of people that just want to know more about family and their roots. And so I can see this as being something, that's just incredible to do, and as a gift for people who are looking for it. And so how did you start on this, Doug? How did this all begin?
On the DNA or just genealogy in general?
What you're doing now, which is the genealogy part. The DNA part, that's really neat. But now for genealogy, you're wanting to know, grandparents' names and grandfather and great-grandmother and the islands and the village and it fills in that part that the DNA part can't fill.
Yeah, well, for me, it started actually on my mother's side, which is not Portuguese. My mother's, her mother was born in Hungary. And for me, that was always a big mystery. Wow, this is sort of exotic and mysterious. We didn't know much, but she gave me a baby book. Everybody in my siblings had baby books, and she wrote in the names that she had. They were all Americanized names because they're from Hungary, so they didn't have that exact name. But anyway, it started there back in 1989, and that was when my uncle, her brother, was still alive. My mother herself died a long time ago, so I was on the East Coast, and I was traveling through Brooklyn and that general area where my mother was born, and my uncle introduced me to all sorts of information and places and stuff, buildings where his father was a dentist and this and that. And so it just all became very interesting. And it very soon I found myself at the library in Salt Lake City, which is the Mormon library. They're the premier place that gathers all the information. And so I was able to find a lot of information about her side of the family. But before I left there, I decided, okay, my father's alive and well, so I'm going to give him some information that I had not yet looked into on his side. So I started digging into that, and there's a little bit of uncertainty, like I found the right people, but everything seemed to match. And I came home with some stuff for him to see too. And by 1990, I was going full blast at all this stuff and finding out what I could about my family.
Wow, that's awesome.
And so where did you start? Like, how did you, I mean, so obviously you know, your parents gave you names and stuff, but then like at this time, was there ancestry.com? What were the resources available for you to get started?
Well, let's see now. Back then it was before the internet, so there was no ancestry. Yeah, people then used to do a lot of writing letters off to places like government agencies. Maybe that would be the state of Iowa or wherever you might have your ancestry, and you know, New York City to get a birth record or a death record or whatever. Nothing was online, of course. There's no such thing as online. And then you also had the Mormons that had things on microfilm, and that's what I was looking at when I went.
Microfiche at that time.
Well, microfiche is the little square things, and that was usually not where they had the stuff. They kept it on microfilm, which is like a roll of like an old 8mm roll of, or 35mm roll of film. Wow. So you put it on the machine and you crank the handle. It's really funny to talk like this as if it's so ancient history, but it's not. It's not that ancient, but it.
No, it isn't. Well, because I remember doing, schoolwork where I had to look up things, and I had to go to the library and look on that microfilm, and it was moving things and going back. And so, I think we're aging ourselves, and we're putting an age on ourselves. I think Angela's still a baby. She did not have anything to do with any of that stuff.
No. You make it sound like I'm 22, and sometimes I do feel like I'm 22. But when I was in high school, and even so in high school, I did the whole microfiche like research for papers and stuff. And when I got to college, we still had to find books using a card catalog in the library.
You knew the Dewey Decimal System? I think no one knows the Dewey Decimal System now, but we did have to learn the Dewey Decimal System.
So, not that I want to be portrayed as old, but I do remember a world without the internet. In fact, email only came online my senior year of college. And
oh, wow.
Yeah. Okay. So, I can't imagine. I mean, because it's hard now, Doug, even with all the resources that we have. I can't even imagine the work and the amount of letters and waiting and stuff like that you would have to have done in a world without the internet. Because, so for example, I, in trying to get my citizenship for Portugal, because I'm third generation, we had to go find my great grandmother's birth records, right? In Portugal, that's where you had to go, because my grandmother, all my grandparents were born here. My parents were born here, and they couldn't find it. So I had to start the process over again and apply via marriage. And so I'm still going through that. So like, we can't even find the birth records, because we had to, or at least, I mean, I haven't gone to the arquivos, right, in the city where she was born, but we put in the request and they came back to us and said, well, we can't find it.
Are you saying that's the status right now? You still can't find it?
Yeah. I mean, well, I haven't asked again, but no.
Well, I've got good news for you, because I have it.
What? Okay. Well, this is on the mainland, so I know you do a lot of the Azorean.
Oh, yeah. I'm talking about your link to Teseda.
But hey, I could do it through that side too. Why not? So yeah, that would be great. Send it to me. And
Wow, I love this. So who did you find, Doug? What's the name? Just say the names. Just say the names.
Oh God, you're talking about something that I haven't looked at for many years. I have no idea. I think all thing I remember is the name Costa, but I don't remember anything else.
Yeah, that's the last name. Well, that's the middle name because it was the Costa Narciso.
And then you had Pereira, right?
I had Pereira.
Oh, so you're Jewish too?
No, Pereira's not Jewish. That's the big.
Pereira was.
That's the big fallacy.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
I thought all the trees named people after the certain fruit trees and all that were Jewish.
Oh, that's the biggest lie. I don't know why how that started.
Oh, how funny!
Yeah,
so, okay, crazy. So let's
think about it. There's I can't remember for sure. I'd have to look at my records as I talk. But there's a guy named Nuno Alvarez Pereira, and he is a nobleman from the 1300s.
Yeah.
The name Pereira is really, really old in Portugal. So I use him as an example because he's like one of the. You can't even get higher than until you get to the king. He was way up there, and so the name of Pereira, it happens to be meaning pear tree, but it has nothing to do. See, people started saying like Oliveira or Pereira or other things that fruit trees or something. I don't know why they picked that, but that they had something to do with the Jews. Well, the Jews were forced to convert in around 500 years ago. And so they picked, if they didn't already have some Portuguese version of their name, they picked names just out of a hat. And, and they picked the names that were around them and people that they're heard of. So every single name that exists in Portugal, at least one Jew had probably picked it. So there's, every single name, you couldn't say they're all Jewish names. Well, it's true, they were. Jews used them, but that's just because they all adopted them. That's nothing to do with the origin of these names. So almost nobody, percentage-wise, named Pereira is going to find that they have a Jewish ancestor with the name Pereira. This just doesn't work that way.
So that goes for like Moreira, Freira, like any of the Eiras.
Yeah, nothing like that.
God, interesting. So okay, so everybody out there who thought you were Jewish, you're not.
Yeah, Freira is referring to Ferrero, the blacksmith trade. So that's like another name like Smith, or Schmidt if you're German. That's what that refers to.
Right.
Yeah, it's really, there is a sort of a wave, a modern trend to find Jewish links. And if you're trying to find it through the fact that you have the name Pereira, which probably 100% of Portuguese do have that name, you're not gonna get anywhere with that. If you don't have Jewish traditions that have been handed down to you through your ancestors, then there's probably no chance that you're going to find any connection to the Jews,
unless you do a regular DNA test, and you will.
Yeah. Now, there are ways to do that. There's some specifics on how you can kind of verify things, but yeah,
because at least 15% of Azoreans come from Jewish descent.
I think 100%. I don't think you can be from the Azores and not have at least a tiny percentage of Jewish ancestry.
They because that's what when I met with people at the Heaven's Gate synagogue in Ponta Delgada. Mm-hmm. The doctor, oh my goodness, I can't think of his last name now. Oh my God, he was such a sweet man too. And there is, and my family is one of them. We do have that percentage of Jewish in our family.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we got that through DNA.
Yeah, last time I looked, I had there's a recent change in things on how they evaluate percentages, but I was looking at mine and I have 1%.
Wow.
Interesting.
But it could be coming through my mother too.
Right.
So let's talk about the DNA testing thing. How has that helped with the whole genealogy picture, right? So more people are getting involved, right? More people are doing the test. How has that is it easier to start tracking people's lineage, or is that, or no, because it's not, I mean, they're sort of related, but they're not, right? Like just because I do a DNA test doesn't mean I'm all of a sudden going to know who my 5 times great grandmother was, right?
Right. Yeah. You don't get any names. You get percentages of stuff, but you do get connections to other people who did the test. And if they have a good tree, you can kind of get an idea that if you're getting a lot of connections through DNA to people who have a known connection to that one or another island, then you could kind of start to think, maybe I have some ancestry from there, even though it won't tell you exactly how. That's one part of the test, but there are other tests that do give you more specifics.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have to say something, and it's something that sometimes bugs me, and that is when I tell someone that I am, my family is from, that I was born, because I was born in San Miguel, and that but my ancestors, and I know that they came from the mainland, whether it, I can go back to the date, but I know through genealogy, because I have my mother's side of the family who someone has been doing it for several years just on the family name and all of that. And I can trace back my mother's family back to 1746 to Trás-os-Montes. So, and I know that my family went from Trás-os-Montes to Algarve. Some people of them went to Madeira. Some went to Brazil. Some went to Santa Maria, which was the very first island to be inhabited from all the 9 islands. That was the first one. So when I mentioned to someone the other day, I'm saying, I can't wait to go to Trás-os-Montes because that area, and I don't have the name of the village that I need to go to right now, but and I'm saying, but I need to go there because that is where my mother's side of the family, my ancestry goes back there, and they're like, oh, I thought you were Azorean, not Portuguese. Like, I thought you were Azorean, and I'm looking at
they're
them,
so disappointed.
like, and I have to just kind of first of all, I want to say you got to know your Portuguese history, number one, before you start sounding like you don't know what the hell you're talking about. and second of all is we're all Portuguese, God damn it. We're all Portuguese. We just came at different times. We grew up, whatever, but we all came from the mainland. It's not, it was, those islands were discovered. The king said, okay, let's go out there. Let's make sure we, and a whole bunch of people from there went there. That's how it went. Mm-hmm. It isn't like we're a crop of people that popped out of the, with the volcano. We're like the volcanic people. It makes no freaking sense. I am no less Portuguese than
so funny.
Anyone else. I am.
No, So Maria, you have opened up a can of worms, but let me totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. But I think this it just evolved over time, right? Because I'm half and half. I'm half Azorean, half mainland, right? And it's funny because most of the people I grew up with here in California, they track their ancestry to the Azores, right? So it was always like, oh, just everybody's from the Azores. Well, so then I meet my husband and we're dating or whatever, and he's like, every time he's from his family's from the mainland. And he's like, every time I meet somebody, they ask me what island I'm from. I'm like, no, they don't. He said, you want to make a bet? The next time we meet somebody and they find out I'm Portuguese, you watch. And sure as shit, we meet somebody and like, oh, what island are you from? He's like, well, I'm from the mainland. They're like, oh, well, you're not. I'm sorry. So then they give him a hard time. And it's just like, why do people do that? It's just so infuriating because
it's the them and us mentality.
It is. Yep. But then it's in between islands too, and I just don't get it. So the good thing is I do think that territorialism is kind of distinguishing with the generations because we are mixed and there's not so many purebloods, if you will, right? So I think, it's dissipating a little bit, but it was a real eye opener for me, because I had never experienced it before, because everybody knew, oh, your dad's from the Azores, whatever. But people really like get into it, like, oh, you're no good because you're from the mainland, or, oh, you're from the Azores, you guys are crazy. Or, I mean, just it's unfortunate, because really that's what keeps our community separated.
We come from the same place.
Yes, I know.
We are all
I totally agree.
from the same place,
right?
Who just happen to have my great grandparents who came to Santa Maria. That's from the mainland. That's the only difference. They decided not to stay in the mainland and come to Santa Maria.
Yeah.
But it's just,
well, there's even
any less Portuguese by being born in the Azores.
When did that happen for you, Maria? When did that happen for you? Where they from the mainland they moved to Santa Maria? Approximately what year was that?
Oh, honey, I don't have that. I should have. I'm not prepared, Doug. But okay. I do have that. I do have.
Like what century? Do you have any idea at all?
Oh, it was my great grandparents. So
that's fairly recent.
Yeah, it was my great grandparents, not my grandparents, my great grandparents.
So aside from those that particular branch from Santa Maria, everyone of your other ancestors are all from the mainland?
I have no idea what happened to the siblings of theirs.
Yeah.
But we're just tracking
your own ancestor.
Yeah. I have no idea about if their brothers and sisters stayed behind. Yeah. In whether they were the ones that went to Algarve and are still in Algarve, or if some of them still are up in Trás-os-Montes area. I have no idea. Yeah. I know that some of them also went to Brazil. That I know.
Yeah.
Some of my went out to Brazil, and that some of them also went to Madeira. So it's funny how that goes. Mm-hmm. But I know with this is all my mother's side of the family. So my grandmother's parents were the ones who came from the mainland into Santa Maria. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then from Santa Maria, they went to San Miguel. Mm-hmm. Because I guess it's the bigger island, and they went there for, I guess he was in business. He did business. He had business.
Yeah. Economic.
Yeah. So that's but yeah, it's really neat to see all that. And but as far as I'm concerned, it's my grandparents, my grandparents, mm-hmm. They were born in the Azores. So I have, a couple of generations and myself that we were all born in the Azores in San Miguel.
So Doug, so if you remember, before not many years ago, it's probably 5 years ago, my dad did the DNA test.
Yeah.
So before he passed away, and it came back and showed that he actually didn't have a lot of Portuguese DNA. Do I remember that correctly?
Well, not exactly. See, the problem is, and I haven't logged into your father's account for a while, but what happened is that there's just not enough people getting tested. So he matches somebody at a low level, and I'm not really remembering exactly what it was, but there was just a few people. They were not Portuguese, and then what that indicates. And first of all, your father did the Y DNA test. That's the one that follows the paternal line only. And so it's not the one that has all the percentages that you've been talking about. And so these connections that are showing up are from easily 4,000, 5,000 years ago.
Oh my God.
And okay. So these people, that are showing up are branches that settled in other countries, but the connection between you is 3,000 or 4,000, 5,000 years old. So what that means is that you don't have anybody that is showing up from the Azores or from Portugal, simply because there's a lack of testing, which we really need to remedy. But That's what's happening in your case. So far, it's considered a rare branch simply because you're practically the only one that represents it.
Yeah.
Interesting. So I guess the more people that get tested, and that's where you see the changes in, I guess, connections and percentages, right? So it does change.
No, you can't really do a connection between percentages, that's the what I'm calling the regular normal DNA test that has a lot of cousins from different places and different size segments that you connect to people with. That's all what they call the autosomal DNA test, and I call it just regular, just to use plain terms. But it's the one that all the companies are selling. But the one your father got is the Y DNA that looks at the Y chromosome handed down from father to son. And so by being very narrow and specific, you know that your father got it from his father, and then your father's grandfather got it, gave it to your grandfather. Whatever. It just follows the exact straight maternal line, and there's nothing to do with percentages at all. It's
okay.
It's just all like, when do you link up to these other people from other countries? When do you link up to people from Portugal?
Well, the whole thing is especially if we're talking about the Azores, besides people from the continent coming into these islands, we also have, through the centuries here, we've had the Romans, even through the Iberian, but we've got through the islands, we've got the French coming through, we've got the Celts coming through, we've got all of these, we've got the Dutch coming through. We have all of those remnants that come from our past, from way back when. And it was funny to see when, because I did 23andMe. That's what I did.
All right.
And so when I did that, because I always had that feeling of telling, whenever I would talk to anyone who would be friends of mine, whether they were Italian, Portuguese, whatever, and I would say, oh yeah, you're Portuguese. You have to be Portuguese. You've got some Portuguese in you. You have to. And this is the funny thing, and I said this already before, my family would constantly tell me, because my husband is English-Irish, and I married an English-Irishman, and my family would say, oh no, Maria, he's Portuguese. He definitely is Portuguese. And so I'd say, no, he's not. So for one of his birthdays or whatever it was, I got him a DNA test. And we're like, we're putting this down, whatever. And there is no Iberian Peninsula anywhere near him. He is English, Irish, Scandinavian. You cannot, this is it.
Yeah.
And so when and then he said, okay, now you're going to put your money where your mouth is, because maybe you're not as Portuguese as you think you are. Oh yeah, them's fighting words with me. And so I'm like, yeah, right, I'm going to do it. So of course, when I did it, it came back that I was like 97% European, which the highest part was Iberian Peninsula, which I knew that. I wasn't going to say, Portugal or whatever, because it's that area there.
Yeah.
And then I've got Italian. I've got like 5. The next big percent after that is Italian. I'm 5% Italian, which is really neat, because I love Italy. And anytime I go there, I feel like I'm at home, but it's that handsome Roman man that came through, and somehow, that happened. And then I have Northwestern European. So I've got the French and the German. And I had always said, my mother's side of the family, like, well, they're more the French side, whatever. They look like they're, I'd hang around my friends who are French descent, and I'm like, oh my God, that almost looks like my grandfather, because I could see it there. But I also have German, and that's like my dad's side of the family, which they always said, oh yeah, we come from Germans, because they're all tall, blonde hair, blue eyes,
Yeah.
And so that makes perfect sense. I don't know why I didn't inherit that gene, but that's a whole other story. But I also have British and Irish, and that and Finnish, which makes sense of all of the people that went through the Iberian Peninsula.
That's true.
It was literally all the people that pretty much went through and overtook it through time. And so I have all of those pieces, and I can see through history just how long and why I have a 97% tile of being who I am. So there's no doubt, folks.
What you're saying is it reminds me of something that I think might be fun to point out at this point. You talked about the general autosomal test that 23andMe does, Ancestry does it, and then FTDNA, the family tree DNA, the one that I prefer, and it goes all these percentages. So now Angela's father did the Y test, which is the one that is the narrow focused paternal line. Now
I can't do that.
No, you can't. But the thing is that what I'm pointing out is you can find out which exact ancestors gave you these percentages from the Y test. You can't find out any other way, but you can only test your own line, your own father or brother or uncle, whoever has your paternal line. So you can only test once. So this is where you need to get a lot of people involved, because you can't test anything but yourself, but other people are going to be testing, and some of them, maybe many of them, are going to represent other parts of your tree. And if you get enough people involved, you can find out many ancestors what their origins were. And so you can find out, oh, I'm getting one that has a connection fairly recent to all the Swedes, or this one here is getting the Celtic, or whatever. And so you can. That's why Y-DNA, I think, is the most valuable test of all.
So whereas my father has passed away, I won't be able to have him do that. But I do have.
If you have a brother,
I have my uncle, my dad's brother, who
you go.
So I have to have him tested.
That's right. And it has to be done with the Y-DNA test at the Family Tree DNA, FTDNA website. I can tell you about that separately.
Okay. And so then with that and what I have for mine, I will get a better picture of exactly who my ancestors are.
Yeah. And your paternal line, if you go back to the like 500 years ago, you have, thousands of ancestors. And your paternal line is only representing one out of thousands. Now, obviously, it's all you can do, and that's why you have to count on other people to get involved. Now, whenever somebody comes along and gets a test that's from the Azores, I kind of figure that that's representing me somehow, some way that I don't really know, but somehow it's representing me too, because I figure that the chances are that whatever ancestral line they have, even if I can't find an actual paper trail connection to that person, maybe it's just maybe it's 100 years before the paper trail records start. So somehow they represent me. And that's why I want to see everybody possibly get tested and get a complete picture as best as possible of, based on the people who are alive today and can test, who are these people who make up the Azores in modern times, and how many different origins can we find through the Y test. So this is where it's so important to get the Y, because it very narrowly does the focusing, and it starts to answer some of these questions. Why are you getting Finnish or Russian or who knows what?
Right. Now, is this something, Doug, that you can work with, like the Azorean government to have something done like that by island?
I would love that. I've never been approached by anybody, and I'm trying to figure out ways to do it myself all the time, every day. But so far, nothing has come up like that.
I'm just, this is like my thought here right now, Angela. What an amazing thing for the government to be behind in the Azores as part of their story. Because the whole thing about the Azores, as well as being Portuguese, whether it's in the Madeira or wherever, in parts of Brazil and parts of Africa, we're everywhere. And to have the story, but especially now with the Azores.
Yeah.
and having each island, the men in the island, be tested through their DNA.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How amazing would that be?
Well, see, I've got a project going that through some group of people that I've collected who donate money. We call them the Portuguese DNA Sponsors Group on Facebook, and we've got a lot of people tested. It's always free unless they're willing to pay for it. But if they're not, and as long as they're willing to take the test, I've got I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of things that are in progress, but somewhere between 400 or 500, maybe 600 people representing mostly the Azores, mostly the islands of Pico and Teseda, but not strictly. There's other ones in there. So we are doing it on our own without anybody's help, although we would sure appreciate the help.
I just think that would be something. I think that would be something that the government would want to be behind.
Yeah.
As the ancestry thing. And now Santa Maria is the oldest island because it's the first. Well, it's the first. There's different ones in ages, and the other day someone had told me which island came up first, which is the oldest, which is the youngest, and all that. But as far as people being there, Santa Maria is the first.
Yeah, and San Miguel is second.
And San Miguel is second.
And
so Santa Maria
was discovered the third, but the settlement pretty much from that point on, after Santa Maria and San Miguel, then the settlement on all the islands pretty much in the middle 1400s and the late 1400s started on all the islands pretty much. I mean, I think Flores and Corvo could be the very last ones to be settled, possibly,
yeah.
but they, it's still very early on. So if it was 25 years different, okay, it might have been, but they all sort of started out in Santa Maria. And it's really interesting that you just keep on mentioning Santa Maria, not only because your ancestors are from there, but we started, I mentioned this project to get the people tested. Well, I've got a group of people, really, really nice, active group from Santa Maria. And we got some people donating to fund it, where we've been testing a lot of people. I think we're up to 45 people so far doing the Y DNA test for the paternal line.
Wow.
And what's so fascinating is that now we're starting to see connections between the islands. There's a lot of testing going on in Pico. It's the best tested in all of Portugal, no matter what area. Pico is number one.
Why do you think that is?
Well, because of my interest in Pico.
See, Doug, you're the guy. Like I said in the beginning, you're the guy.
And so what's fascinating is that we're getting connections to some of the people who got tested in Pico, and we're finding out that, hey, they have a great match to this person who just got tested from Santa Maria. And so it's happening more and more. There's several connections to Santa Maria now. And it's all thanks to DNA that we even know about it.
Well, and again, it started in Santa Maria.
There you go.
Just like my family did. They started in Santa Maria, but then they went to San Miguel. Mm-hmm. In the same way, they started in Santa Maria and they went off to another island.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of island hopping.
Oh, yeah. In the early days, when you had to look a little harder to find a spouse, you often will find people going between islands.
Yeah. It's really funny. And I say this a lot of times, but like, I feel like I'm related to Angela. Like, I feel like, we're all connected somehow, somewhere. We are all connected. And, so when I see someone who's also from San Miguel and they're from, whatever, and I'll say, okay, prima, because God only knows we're cousins. Mm-hmm. Somehow, somewhere, yep. We are all somehow related.
Yep.
I am so positive of that.
I'm convinced of that.
Yep.
So I think most people that get into genealogy, what's the end game for us? Do we get, a really pretty fancy family tree, drawn for us? Is really just from a knowledge standpoint to see how far back we can go? I think a lot of people want to know, are they related to nobility, things like that. So a couple questions for you. What do you find is the biggest reason people are doing this? And then secondly, if people do want, the gold leafed family tree kind of thing, or even just something they can print out, what's the best way to go about doing that? I mean, especially if you don't have time to go to Portugal and visit the archives and do all the research. I mean, I'm sure the answer will be like, well, you hire somebody to do it. But
Well,
how do you know the best? Because there's a lot of people that do it, right? And how do you know that you're going to get that it's accurate and that they're going to do a good job and not just like, oh yeah, you were related to this guy, but you really weren't. I mean, not to say people are frauds, but so kind of give some advice on that. But then
how to get people started doing this?
Well, I think that the people who they start off with a question of your origins for, like you were mentioning already, who are the people in your tree and who can you find? And is there a connection? I already heard this or that about maybe there was a connection to the nobility. And in fact, I think that for the most part, most people who are from the Azores actually can find a connection to the nobility. I've done it on various branches. I struggled for a while to get that far, and I finally achieved it. As far as how you start off, well, you got two choices. Either you invest a lot of time, learn how to do it, and the records are all available, or you're going to have to hire somebody. And if you don't have the time, but you work hard and you have the money, well, then that's when you can do the hiring. And there are people who have more of a specialty area. I sometimes get people making requests for mainland research, and if I don't either have the time or the interest or the documents aren't available to me, I will send them to someone I might know. But I have the two island specialties of Pico and Terceira, and if you have ancestors from there, I can tell you that I know your ancestors, even though I don't know how you link to them yet. If you tell me, I'll know that too. But so you just have to start seeing who's available, seeing who you can afford. Most of the people starting off offering professional services start off at a very low rate, and they might not have the experience yet, and so they start off a little lower. I've had some of my friends approach me and wondering how could they get started offering. There's one that I can think of for Graciosa, for instance. They might have a lot of ancestors from there and created quite a database of things. So they kind of set up for anybody to come along and say, well, my great grandfather was Manuel de Souza, and he was born in Praia Graciosa in 1799 or whatever. And so, if you have enough information to get started, you can hand it over to somebody who is rather expert in it, and take it from there. They'll find what they can on the records. As far as putting it into a final form, I very rarely get that request from anybody. Actually, they want the documents, and what they do with it, I don't know because they don't tell me. But I would imagine they are using a genealogy software so they can put it into a tree and input the information that I give them. They create a little tree, and then they see how far back they can go on every branch.
Okay, so you're going to do mine. Since you already have all my family information anyway. But yeah, no, I need to find someone to do it on my mom's side, because most of it's funny. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. It certainly makes it a little more convenient, I think. So both my paternal grandparents came from Terceira and came from like the same town. So it's not like they came from different islands, right? So they're like from the same area. And then my maternal grandparents, like all four of them, I'm pretty sure, like all came from Guarda, that area. So I mean, ideally, hopefully it wouldn't be too hard to find like all the lines, right? Because you've got my grandfather's parents and then my grandmother's parents, but someday we do all of them. But that's where they're from. So I got to find somebody that can help me with that area. But
it doesn't really matter so much what you said. I mean, it
oh, really? It doesn't?
It really makes it simpler to start with, but you're going to find out when you get to your Guarda ancestors that one of them came from somewhere else, and pretty soon you'll be off on other tangents, wherever that leads, and it makes really no difference. There's a surprise for you. I remember this after you started talking about things, that when you follow your direct paternal line, your father's line, and going straight back as far as you can go, you get to the island of Graciosa.
Really?
Yeah. Back in I think it's, let's see now. I think it's the 1600s.
Interesting.
Yeah, you have an ancestor who came from the 1600s, moved over to Terceira, and joined the rest of your ancestors.
Interesting.
Graciosa.
Who knew? See, okay, you and I have to talk offline, and you got to paint all the picture for me. So, do you have names too, or no?
Of what?
Of who that was in the 1600s that came over?
Oh, you know what? I mean, I'm only going from memory, so I don't have a name. No,
but I mean, in your document, if you were to go back and look, does it give
oh,
really?
I keep everything in my genealogy program.
Oh my God!
I don't remember how many I have now, but it's somewhere close to 300,000 names now. So,
wow.
And so I don't have it all those memorized, obviously, but when the genealogy program keeps everything organized. So all I need to do is type in your name and whatever information I have input now pops up, and you're gonna for you I'll see your father and your grandparents. So I won't have anything on your mother's side, but I'll have all your father's side.
Right. Okay. So send me an invoice and send me the data. I totally want to see it. I totally want to see it.
Yeah. I loved seeing the names. And I'm hearing you say I want to hear the names, because that I really loved seeing.
I do have a name. I hope I'm right. If I'm wrong, I'll correct it later. But the oldest ancestor, at least the last name, I don't remember the first name, but the oldest ancestor, I'll spell it for you because you probably are going to pronounce it differently than I would. Sodre. You know that name?
Sodre?
Sodre, I think.
Sodre, okay.
Okay, so that's the name of your oldest possible ancestor that you can track with paper.
So the only time I've heard that word, it's a metro station in Lisbon. There
you go. That's right. It has the family has a connection to that. It's a very interesting one.
I'm gonna go take a picture with that sign next time I'm in Lisbon.
There you go.
My family right here.
The fascinating thing about this family name, I have it too. Several branches of it. They came from Graciosa, but they were in mainland Portugal first. They married into the family of a man who they call him the Capitan Mor. He was the Capitan Donatario, and his name was Pedro Correa de Cunha. He was a nobleman who was granted the island, the administration of that island by the king, and he connects to them. And the name Sodre is a Portuguese version of a British name, Sudley, Suddy.
Oh my God!
Now that before you start thinking that your direct paternal line goes all the way back to Sudley, it doesn't, because what happens is family names skip around. You obviously if Sudley or Sodre is your direct paternal line, but he's just the last ancestor, because as soon as you go the next generation down, it's changed to something else, and then it finally gets to Costa or Pereira or whatever it was, and those are all maternal branch names. So it doesn't. If you keep on following your Sodre ancestor, if you could, because this paper trail ran out, but if you could, it won't necessarily go straight back to this first Sodre. It will go possibly from his mother or his grandmother or something, and then his own paternal line would be who knows what else. This is where Y-DNA will help you figure things out beyond the records. But yet there is a connection to that same place that you mentioned in Lisbon, and it's all the same family. It goes back to actually Sodré itself. Subtly, when it gets to England, it goes back further to William the Conqueror.
What?
So he's in your ancestry. You don't know the precise connection, but William the Conqueror, the king of England, and all that, they're all in your ancestry.
Angela, no wonder. This explains it all. This explains it.
I love it. I knew I was royalty. And there's a reason I love London. I've always loved London.
Claim now.
I have to get you a crown.
No, you have to stake your claim for your piece of England.
Right.
You need a tiara.
I'm sending a letter to the Queen.
Stat.
Oh my God, that's so awesome. Okay, I'm serious, Doug. When we hang up here, I'm going to email you and you're going to send me everything you have, and then, let me know how much I owe you, because this is really, really fascinating. I had no idea. This is amazing.
William the Conqueror. Oh yeah. Yes. Definitely.
I love that show, and we've talked about this, Maria. It's kind of
yes.
Fun. That show, Finding Your Roots, and there's actually two. And Do You Know Who You Are? I think there's two different shows.
Yep.
And I remember Cindy Crawford found out that she was a direct descendant of Charlemagne. Mm-hmm. I mean, and how cool is that, right? And so,
you know what we need to do?
Well, sure. So we've talked about, Doug. I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but Maria and I have talked about, like, what if we did a show like that, but like specifically about Portuguese lineage?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how cool would that be?
Yeah. Well, do you mean like which connections to the Portuguese go back that far, like proven?
Yeah.
That, or like, we ask, a celebrity, that we're going to do it, and we follow their line back, Portuguese, like a Portuguese.
It's going to be Finding Your Portuguese Roots.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
So someone like
we have the title and everything.
Yeah.
Get someone like Steve Perry or
exactly.
Or Tom Hanks.
Yep.
Meredith Vieira.
I can already tell you. I found that I'm related to Tom Hanks and Steve Perry. That's fun. Both of them connect to me through Pico.
Really?
I thought Tom Hanks' family was from Terceira.
Tom Hanks, Terceira? No, his mother's more recent connections were from to Island of Flores. He has a Graciosa connection. A Fayal connection, Pico connection, and there's some that I don't know, some branches. So there could be other ones, but I don't know if anybody knows them. I'm not sure. Nobody ever hired me to do it, so I never spent the time it would take to break through some of his missing links. But he has connections to Pico for sure.
All right. Well, we've put it out there. Yeah. We've made it known to everyone. This could be another TV series called Finding Your Portuguese Roots. And Doug would be the person tracking it down. And I mean, this is it. We're executive producers.
I can already tell you, because even though your connection from the Sodré family is only hypothetical, but because you would have to, he has the name Sodré from somewhere. He's got to be from that ancestry. Well, also Tom Hanks has that same connection. So that means that at least remotely you're connected to him.
I knew it. I've always liked him, of course.
I think he's fabulous.
Yeah.
And I love Steve Perry's music. I absolutely love it. And my connection to him is very remote, but from the 1600s in Pico. And you might have a connection to Pico you don't even know about. I have to look at your tree again to see.
Okay. Well, man, we could just go
William the Conqueror. That's all I need to know. That's all I need to know. I will be buying a tiara for you, my dear. You will have a tiara. Oh yeah.
Oh, we're proud. We're proud. And then I'm gonna take a picture, a selfie, send it to the Queen, and be like, "Pay up. I want my part now."
Hey, Prima.
Right? Like, I know I'm in line. Am I like 10,000 in line? Number 10,000?
Maybe like 20 million or something.
Right.
It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. You're still in that line. You're still in that line.
That's awesome.
Well,
we blew through an hour.
Oh my God, we're running out of time here.
Fast. Yeah. And we haven't even talked about food. So I know it's like completely not related to
I can tell you I love Portuguese
today.
But but here's the thing. What if there were like, depending on where your ancestry is from, you're predisposed to like certain Portuguese foods, right? That would be kind of funny. Probably not, but because we all like everything.
We all like the same.
I'm sure that's not right.
Yeah, probably not. And I was just, spitballing. Anyway, okay. So Doug, what is your favorite Portuguese dish?
Okay, well, first of all, I have to backtrack a little bit. I was not raised in Portuguese culture, so I kind of come to it with open eyes and a need to learn a lot. But we always did have a few things. We always had linguiça.
Mm-hmm.
My grandmother always used to send us Portuguese Easter rolls. Right? Actually, they were I think from Christmas, but Easter too. I think.
Yeah, masa. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so those are really the only two things that I had growing up, knowing that hey, this is Portuguese. But other than that, we didn't really have much to say about anything. I can barely tell you anything.
Well, since now you do know you have that, and
right.
you are, you haven't gone and experimented with different foods?
Well, you know what? When I visited Teseda, when one of my cousins was alive, he took me out to the restaurants and stuff, and I had stuff, but I can't really tell you, what it was. To tell you the truth, I think I had bacalhau.
Yeah.
But can't really tell you for sure whether I liked it. There was one time when I was in Pico at a restaurant in Santa Antonio, I believe it was, not right next to San Roque. Yeah, there was a restaurant that had a really delicious. It was a side dish. It was some type of roll. I just really loved it. I can't really think what it was, but I like the food. I just just don't partake.
And so now so you don't partake in it now, and with your children, are they exposed to the Portuguese culture at all?
No, my wife is Slovak, and we are on just a good food diet. Doesn't really even matter what it comes from, and it's a lot of vegetables and a lot of good stuff. So it's not any particular ethnic type of food. It's just good food. So whatever that might be.
Yeah, no, good food that's important. That's the best thing.
So I was going to ask, do you cook anything, or have you experimented with cooking anything Portuguese or not?
You know what? My wife does in the past more than before we were not really eating the good food as much. And so she did anytime she used anything with sausages, more often than not, she chose linguiça to do it with. So
linguiça is the big thing for you then. Okay.
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
okay.
As far as what I know, what I'm familiar with, yeah.
Well, I mean, I know you're all about the genealogy and doing all of that, and sometimes food doesn't come into it, but part of the culture is definitely, besides knowing where your roots are, is also taking in the rest of the culture. And hopefully one day, Doug, you'll be able to enjoy a little bit more of that, because that's important. That's also important too. Yeah. Well, this has been wonderful. This has been a very different podcast. It's not, I'm glad we've done it, because I know there are plenty of people out there that would love to know more about their ancestry, and to, realize that, folks, we did not come up with the volcano from the islands. That we did come from other places, and most likely it was all from the mainland, and that we do have other parts that make us whole, which is a wonderful thing. And I hope that the people listening will put the information on how people can get a hold of you, Doug, and as well as, to be able, if they want to go down this journey of knowing more about their roots and where to begin, that would be a great thing. So for those listening that want to do that, we'll definitely put Doug's information on for you, as well as, links to order your DNA testing, because that's important too. And to know that, if you're a woman doing that you are going to need a male
relative. Yeah.
To be able to get the full picture.
Yeah, you know what? If you have nothing but sisters, or your mother was an only child or whatever, you can turn to cousins, male cousins. Just look to see. Well, follow the father's line of your male cousin. Does it go to someone in your own tree? If it does, then he's your candidate.
Right.
Nephew, and whatever.
Yeah. So, but this is wonderful. Thank you, Doug. I know you're a busy man, and we've tried on other times to be able to do this. And I'm glad that you took the time to talk to us and be at our table.
Mm-hmm.
My pleasure.
And thanks to you, Doug, I'm walking a little taller today. I'm going to get a t-shirt that says Angela the Conqueror.
I love it. Oh my God. I love it. This explains so much. It really does.
Is this that attitude that I'm detecting here?
Yeah.
Oh my God. I
don't know if that's a compliment or what.
Oh no, it's a grand compliment. It's a grand compliment. Sometimes she goes, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And of course, we have these conversations that go back and forth. And it's like, yeah, now we know she is Angela the Conqueror.
Oh my God.
I love it.
I can hear a few people, their eyes rolling out of their head right now.
Oh yeah. And I want to be there. I would love to see your husband's.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, come to me, my fellow. Yes.
Before you start making yourself too special, I can probably tell you that 100% of Portuguese descend from the same person.
Well, thanks.
Just bringing it down to back to earth a little bit.
You just burst my bubble. Whatever.
Well, it was nice knowing you.
You'll always be Angela the Conqueror.
I will. I'm still going to wear the damn t-shirt, of course. All right. Well, this has been a ton of fun. I got, not to say that you're boring, Doug, but I have to say it's way more fun conversation than I kind of expected. So this is pretty amazing. And yeah, so like Maria said, we'll put the links there for your website and I guess other resources that you think would be good to provide people, Doug. And
great.
Yeah, and I guess if anybody has questions, just let us know and we can route the questions to Doug, or we'll put his Facebook page there too, and you can ask him directly. I know you run a couple of groups on Facebook, so yeah, there's lots of ways to catch. And then we'll all figure out who our grandfather was.
Yeah.
Grandfather, not grandfather, but the one guy that fathered us all. We'll figure it out. But yeah, no, with that, we're going to wrap it up and say thanks, Doug, for participating.
Thank you, Doug.
Okay. Have a great day.
Thanks everybody out there for listening and joining us for another episode. Please take a few minutes to write a review for us on iTunes or SoundCloud, either one. It really, really, really does go a long way with helping people find us. And subscribe, share with family and friends, and just share the love. That's all we ask.
Share the love, baby. Share the love.
All right. Até a próxima, Maria.
Até a próxima, querida.
Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
Thanks again for listening to our Portuguese Table podcast.
If you haven't subscribed yet, you can do so on SoundCloud or iTunes.
And all episodes can be found on our website at www.ourportuguesetable.com.
You can also reach us at feedback@ourportuguesetable.com with comments, questions, or suggestions.
Até a próxima!